All right, good morning, 707 suspension. Just wanted to do a quick little video here. Finally been catching up down here at the shop, so if you need your suspension serviced this summer is always a good time. We got a lot of questions about bladders, so we thought we'd do a quick little video here. This is a 24 KTM 450 XCW shock. First and foremost, if you are doing a bladder install yourself, make sure you take out the high speed and remove everything, so when you heat this up, you're not jeopardizing the shims or the spring or any of that stuff. And make sure to replace the O-ring. So anyways, getting into the bladder, the differences of the two. To be honest, a lot of the times bladders were replaced in WP shocks, in my opinion. In the early days, were for simplicity of rebuilding it yourself, just because you kind of have to have a special tool to do the stock setup, which basically has a little fill. There you go, little O-ring. This actually is rad because it does seal very well, and just have never had really any of those leak. The Schrader valve, you know, it's fine, but probably isn't as reliable. So anyhow, the differences between a bladder and a piston are piston style. You have your nitrogen in here as the shock compresses. This is getting a little bit of movement up and down, creating the shock to compress and the nitrogen to compress, as liquid obviously is not compressible. All right, so this shock or bladder here is a rubber membrane. Another reason people do add these, or the reason we're doing this, is just honestly it does give you a little bit more comfort, a little bit more lay down traction in our opinion. Not a deal breaker, but it is better. They're kind of running those in all the pro component WP shocks and stuff like that for that reason. Downside of a bladder is that it will release nitrogen into the oil much sooner than a piston style. The piston style, gosh, they can go a long time, and that's why WP uses them, because they're pretty reliable. A guy that doesn't service a shock could probably beat that thing up for almost 150 hours without it really having any issues, where a bladder, I think if you do that, it's gonna probably get pretty bouncy at some point and probably have to do something a little bit sooner. But at the same time, anybody who's running a bladder versus a piston generally is racing or is on the higher performance end, so they're servicing their stuff every 40 hours and kind of catching it before it kind of has that issue anyhow. So obviously all the Showa and KYB shocks come with the bladder stock, so same thing. And that's kind of funny here, we always see people taking shocks apart, Instagram, Facebook, whatever videos, and like, oh gosh, the oil is really foamy, who was in this thing, blah blah blah. Honestly, it's gonna happen like no matter what. Like it is gonna migrate from the bladder membrane into the oil. I don't care what anybody says. So that's just a thing that happens with shocks and suspension at high temperature and beating them up, and that's why we service them regularly at the 40-hour mark or even sooner if you have a really fast moto kid. So anyhow, it's a lot of random gibberish stuff there, but hopefully that helps you guys out understanding the difference between the two. Thanks for tuning in. 7 and 7 suspension.